Status Coup was on the ground for a year, covering the Amazon workers fighting for a union. We were there when it was not a sexy story. We were there when we knew it wouldn't go viral. We were there when this very platform owned by Google was suppressing any headline with Amazon. And I could promise you that was happening. But, you know, Ron, I got to tell you, as a journalist, a lot of times you go around the country and I kind of feel cynical. I kind of feel hopeless because I'm covering stuff and there's very little victories and a lot of defeats. So for me, covering this victory on Friday really gave me a jolt and really reinvigorated me a little bit in terms of there actually is hope out there, because we know there's a lot of hosts and a lot of cynical people out there basically feeding to people, burn it all down. The system's too corrupt to change anything. I want to play one clip from my coverage on Friday. This is Brett Daniels, because I think he was one of the leading organizers and what he had to say about basically what people should take away from this.
Did twice while organizing. Just personally for you, what got you inspired to be a part of this? And did you actually think you guys could be victorious? Because it was really a David versus a couple of Goliaths.
Yeah, so it's all about the people, the power of the people. Literally seeing Chris, Derek, Gerald, and Jay, over 2 years ago now, fight for working class people, fight for health and safety conditions. It's continuously shown that it's profit over people, and we're here to say that it's people over profit. All power to the people.
Love that guy. Before we get to the corporate media meltdown, what are your thoughts on what he said and the overall victory, which a lot of people I don't think expected?
Yeah, I echo your sentiments, man. Like I felt really, really good when it was all happening and seeing it all unfold, and also seeing Christian Smalls and other Amazon workers get opportunities on the corporate media and stuff like that. I know we're going to go to the meltdown soon. But it was still really cool to see, like, okay, it got so big, they can't ignore it. This is a good thing. Whenever a movement gets so big that they can't ignore it, that means you're winning. Of course, they're going to try to trivialize it and marginalize it, and that's happening right now. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. But it does mean that we're winning. I compared it in a fun way. You know, I'm an aging punk rocker here, and I kind of compared it. It reminds me when I was a kid, in a band that I've been following for a couple years finally gets a little bit of mainstream success. Like they get played on the radio back when that was a thing that mattered, or they got played on MTV. It kind of feels like that, except this has a lot of more real world significance in comparison. But so, yeah, I mean, it felt freaking great. And especially since, you guys were on the beat for a long time with this, and you guys were also on the beat for a long time with Bessemer. I covered that a lot on Get Your News On with Ron as well. So we know all the dirty tricks that Amazon pulls, down to they will coordinate with the city itself to get traffic lights removed so that people can't pass out union literature to their coworkers. So, we know what we're up against. And when you look at someone like Christian Smalls, who had gotten the spotlight, and of course, it wasn't just Christian Smalls. I mean, there was a big movement alongside him too. But, he had really gotten some spotlight. So they were going after him specifically, and they knew what they were up against in Staten Island. We know they pulled out every dirty trick in the book. But you know what? The people were too loud to be ignored. And it just goes to show you that, yes, when we really get together and we become too loud and too big for them to ignore us, we can get some power. And we're seeing it with Amazon around the country. We're seeing it. You know who else is scared shitless? Starbucks. They are so scared right now to the point where they brought Howard Schultz back in as CEO. Why? Is Howard a nice guy who everybody likes? No, he isn't. We all saw his freaking presidential campaign. Nobody likes that dude. But you know what he's been good at in the past? Ruining union efforts. So they got to get him back in there, because the other guy, he's had a couple losses.
Absolutely. And by the way, I think there's something to be said. One thing that's frustrated me over the years, not to be, protest splaining to protest movements, and there's been a ton of, successful protests, and it's for a day, and that's it. Everybody kind of goes back to their own thing, and yeah, they'll let you protest for a day, maybe two, maybe, the police will crack your heads in, but generally, the capitalist class will let you protest, but there's not a lot of follow-up from protests. There has not been a lot of organized protests around economics using boycotts, using organized strikes. I don't think you're going to get a general strike overnight, but you could start locally in hubs, whether it's Kroger's, local groceries, local big banking, this and that. What I think stands out about this, because I saw it, I don't even think in a year they missed one day. I think they were out there with that union tent every single day. A lot of times when I got there, it would just be Christian because other organizers were inside work and Christian obviously was fired. But it was that presence every single day through real bad heat, real frigid cold. I mean, I was there when it was pouring out. We were under the tent. But that presence every day, which then evolved to distributing food to workers every day, that matters because consistency matters. And I think the left, or whatever's left of the left, needs to realize, hey, this student debt protest going on today, which we're going to cover, why is it just a day? I know people are working and everybody's busy, but we need things to last a while. That's why Occupy was successful when it was. Obviously, for different reasons, it flamed out, including Michael Bloomberg dispensing the police to, basically run through the whole encampment. But we need things that last, whether it's union drives, strikes, protests. We need things that last a while where the media cannot ignore it. So I think that's one of the lessons. And another lesson, this is history, but the very media that didn't cover it, not all, but a lot of them, are historically freaking out, I would say. Let's start with my favorite, Jim Cramer of CNBC fame. Boy, his takeaway from this is really, really inspiring.
We know that the union work rules are what everything is about. It's the same case with Starbucks, too. If you can't tell your employees when they work, then you're really not able to have much of an ability to be able to move product or move coffee. And I think that the unions will be in charge of time that you need to work. And that would be dreadful very dreadful for Andy Jassy.
And that's just a U.S. picture, right?
Yeah.
They got Europe to think about as well.
Look, one of the problems was, Starbucks does indeed have unionized places in the ones that they franchise. But if you can't control the work rules, no one wants to work certain shifts. So you can just say, listen, I'm not going to work that shift. And Amazon would not be able to say, yes, you must work it. So that's what at stake with union is time that you have to work.
Our thanks to Dee. We're going to watch developments in New York
We have more on
and
the
Alabama.
tech check?
I imagine we will.
Because she's doing amazing work. This is a very important story because one of the reasons why Amazon works so well is because people work when Amazon.
So, yeah, that's the main fear that Amazon had, that, Christian Smalls will be setting the schedule for workers. Before I get your response, I want to play a clip that maybe Jim Cramer did not consider because, Amazon currently does set the schedule, including forcing people to work through tornadoes, hurricanes, blizzards, and other things. Colin, if we could play that clip.
Every year that I can remember that it was a snowstorm or a hurricane, we still had to come in to work if it was our assigned day. So, the fact that this time it took multiple workers' lives, it just shows how greedy this corporation is. They'll do anything they can to get a dollar bill, even if it involves sacrificing their own workers' lives. And it's just really sad to see.
Yeah, I guess Jim Cramer forgot about that tornado or hurricanes, or another worker told me they lost their car driving to work during a blizzard. But they were going to get fired if they didn't go during a blizzard in New York City. Your thoughts on, we're not surprised by a CNBC meltdown, but this whole notion that, Amazon won't be able to set its schedules, this and that. Well,
it's beyond ridiculous. I mean, that is so beyond ridiculous to try to. It's almost like he sat down. Which, by the way, small aside, he sounds drunk, but it's almost like he sat down and he's like, okay, I have to find some kind of reason why this is bad. I have to find some kind of spin to say why this is a terrible thing that workers will actually have to be treated with respect and dignity. What can I possibly do? And this is the best he came up with. He's like, oh, yeah, they'll set the schedule so you won't get anything in 2 days anymore. That's not what a union does. That's not how a union works. A union is not there to say, hey, we only want to work 2 hours this week, so screw you. That's not how it works. That's not what happens. What happens is people are treated with respect and dignity. So when it comes to scheduling, a union is there to protect you if you have scheduled time off that you are entitled to as an employee, and Amazon comes at you and says, hey, you got to come in today because we had someone else call off, and if you don't, you're fired. And you say, well, gee, today's my wedding. I feel like you guys are being unreasonable jerks here. The union protects you from something like that happening. That's what a union's for. As we pointed out in this clip, a union is there to protect you, that you have rights when there is something like a natural disaster, i.e. a tornado or a blizzard, where your safety is at stake, that you're protected there, that you're not going to have to be forced into work. That's not setting the schedule or monopolizing a schedule. That's giving workers basic rights that they shouldn't even have to ask for. You shouldn't be asked to put your life on the line for Amazon. And a union is there to make sure that doesn't happen. Because guess what? It is happening because of this psychotic capitalist society that we live in. And by the way, I don't even like to refer to it as stages of capitalism, because this is what capitalism does every single freaking time it's tried. So that's why you need a union. And Jim Cramer's ridiculous assessment here is absolutely comical and beyond bizarre. And there's no way he actually believes that. That's probably why maybe he had to throw a few back before he did this segment. I can't say for sure. I'm just saying the dude sounds drunk. And it is absolute nonsense. The fact that things like these are parroted on a cable news network just shows you how beyond toxic the media structure in the United States is, where we've given news and information over to the corporations to just do whatever they want. That's why they're not news organizations, they're PR organizations. And in this case, they're doing pretzel logic PR to try to spread anti-union sentiments.
And also, by the way, a union does not dictate when people work, but might fight and win. Hey, the overnight workers at Amazon that have to work from like 10 at night to like 5 in the morning, yeah, they're going to get extra because they're working overnight. Sure. Hey, the people who have to take transportation, and it takes 2 to 3 hours for them to get to the warehouse in Staten Island, which I spoke with several of them. They have to take ferry, bus, subway to get there. Yeah, Amazon's going to have to cover some of that significant expense. That's what a union is for. Hey, right. Pashawn Brown, who was a 38-year-old black woman who dropped dead after Amazon had her administering COVID nasal swabs on coworkers from 9 a.m. to 4 or 5 p.m. for months. Yeah, she would have been able to go to a union and say, hey, they're telling me I'm going to get bonus pay for COVID testing workers. And a union would be there to say, no, Amazon could hire nurses and doctors to do that, not untrained workers. And Amazon didn't give her N95 masks, gowns, shields, plexiglass, nada. That's what a union is for. Right. But it also gets better. You go from Jim Cramer, freaking out about Christian Smalls setting the schedule, to another, I think it was CNBC also. This was this guy's first question to Christian Smalls on his victory.
Started as a highly contentious relationship between you and Amazon to no small degree because people there belittled you, alienated you, thought they could win by making you the face of the union push, but you've won this round. So my question is on your strategy from here. Amazon's got a new CEO, right, since you started this. You are now a national figure in this new labor movement. What's your approach from here? To what degree do you think you can cooperate more with Amazon leadership, or to what degree do you think that's wise?
Well, they don't have no choice. You know, the revolution is here. That's what we just witnessed on Friday. We're going to organize buildings all across the nation. You know, in the last 72 hours, we've been contacted from workers all over the world. So they want to unionize. We're going to absolutely help them. We're going to get it done here in New York first. We have another election coming up in 3 weeks, so we're right back at the campaign, on the campaign trail. And once we're finished here in New York, we're going to spread just like the Starbucks movement is spreading across the nation.
So, Christian, it started off hostile. Yeah, maybe because they fired me for organizing for COVID safety and then called me inarticulate, i.e., they're racist. But what's amazing to me is they're basically asking the victims of insane union busting, daily mandatory union busting sessions, which some of these workers I spoke with sat in 10 to 12 of the same union busting sessions, victims of extreme heat in the warehouse, including workers fainting and being carted off on stretchers, victims of Amazon refusing to call ambulances for hurt workers. I mean, I could go on and on. His question to the victims of that, who are now the victors, when are you going to cooperate with Amazon? I mean, you just can't make it up.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't. And of course, all those things you mentioned, that wasn't going to be incorporated in the question. They're not going to ask Christian Smalls, hey, what really brought it to this point? They're going to try to make it out like, oh, this guy was just fired, so he's pretty angry. I mean, we get it. He was fired, and maybe they're being a little hard on workers. Shrug. They're really trying to downplay it. And this is, you could find, there's a media theorist named Todd Gitlin. I'm pretty sure he's still with us actually, but he did this thing where he does like the chart of how the media tries to marginalize movements, and it's really the first step they do is they kind of trivialize it, which is exactly what is going on there in that kind of very very skeletal leading question where it's just like, oh, well, you were just fired. You're just a guy who got fired, and then you just started this thing, and it's connecting with people. But, you're going to be able to cooperate with people, right? And shout out to Christian Smalls for not bucking, for not in any way going into the downplaying of that question and just sticking to it where it's like they don't have a freaking choice. That was the perfect answer in that moment. So I got to say, to put a positive on it, shout out to him for not falling for the bait and for really sticking it to them in that question and using his airtime, to the most.